Welcome back to our channel. Today's video is Guess the Player. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's start. Guess the player. Kylian Mbappe. Guess the player. Lionel Messi. Guess the player. Neymar Jr. Guess the player. Cristiano Ronaldo. Guess the player. Mohamed Salah. Guess the player. Thierry Henry. Guess the player. Luis Suarez. Guess the player. Zinedine Zidane. Guess the player. Eden Hazard. Guess the player. Kevin De Bruyne. Guess the player. Steven Gerrard. Guess the player. George Best. Guess the player. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Guess the player. Didier Drogba. Guess the player. Roberto Carlos. Guess the player. Andres Iniesta. Guess the player. Paulo Dybala. Guess the player. Sergio Ramos. Guess the player. Manuel Neuer. Guess the player. Kai Havertz. Guess the player. Luka Modric. Guess the player. Virgil van Dijk. Guess the player. Trent Alexander-Arnold. Guess the player. Raheem Sterling. Guess the player. N'Golo Kante. Guess the player. Jordan Pickford. Guess the player. Felipe Coutinho. Guess the player. Marco Reus. Guess the player. Gary Lineker. Guess the player. Robert Lewandowski. Guess the player. Mason Mount. Guess the player. Thomas Muller. Guess the player. Frankie de Jong. Guess the player. Tosun. Guess the player. Michael Antonio. Guess the player. Emil Smith-Rowe. Guess the player. Yusuf Demir. Guess the player. Che Adams. Guess the player. Fabinho. Guess the player. Thomas Partey. If you got here, share your rating in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you for watching.